Now, welcome back to Iowa Live. Lou and Michelle here. We have a very good friend of ours joining us in studio right now.
We do. Cynthia Letsch with Letsch Law Firms joining us here this morning. Thanks to you for coming in here this morning. You always share such wonderful information. I know this morning you're kind of wanting to focus on changes in the guardianship and conservatorship laws.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, now we're talking about this because the laws have changed, and they changed recently. They changed in January, beginning of January. And why don't you explain a little bit about what this means?
Sure. So every once in a while, we just have to take a look at a whole body of laws as a group and see how are they meeting the needs of the people that they're supposed to serve. And we've done that with the guardianship and conservatorship laws. The Supreme Court, Iowa Supreme Court, commissioned a task force. The Iowa Bar Association commissioned a committee. It was a huge deal. And the result was some very massive changes to the guardianship and conservatorship laws.
Okay.
So the biggest change, one of the biggest changes, there are a lot of big changes. One of the biggest changes is the guardianships for children have been moved out of probate court and into the juvenile court system, where they belong.
Okay, so
really.
what does that mean?
Well, that means that those folks who routinely deal with those issues that children who are having parental issues deal with, those are the folks who are going to be dealing with the guardianships and conservatorships now. Those judges will be dealing with those issues, and those attorneys and supports people that deal with those issues that children have are going to be the people involved now in determining who is the guardian, who needs to be the guardian for this child, and what the services this child needs to receive are. There are new reporting requirements. We can talk about that also.
Okay.
But I think it was a really good change. You know, you can't have a one-size-fits-all guardianship rule that would manage children and oftentimes seniors. Mm-hmm. So it was that part was a really good move.
Okay, let's talk about some of the things that, like a checklist, so to speak, when it comes to guardianship and what things that have to be done.
Sure. So in order to get a guardianship, if you have a minor, of course, you know, if you're a minor, you need a guardian. If your parents can't do it, then somebody needs to have legal authority to do that for you. But if you're an adult, you're presumed to have the capacity to make your own determination and decisions, unless a judge has said you don't have the capacity to do that. And the Iowa Supreme Court has said that it's not an all or nothing. Judges have to look at partial capacity and what things can you keep control over or what things might you need to give up. And that's a really hard area to be in, and so there is a little bit more clarification in that in the new laws. But one of the really big changes about the new law that pertains to adults is the people who are entitled to know that this proceeding is happening. So before you could come into court and there's a short list of people who are called interested parties, and they get to know that we're trying to get a guardianship for mom or dad. And that list of who's entitled to know that these proceedings are going on has been very broadly expanded to include other people that are not necessarily family members that have been involved in this person's life in a significant way, such as somebody who's a significant other and not maybe an actual legal spouse, and also maybe someone who has previously held your power of attorney, or if you've been in a care facility, the care facility has a right to know that this is happening. And all this is intended to give the judge more information to make a correct decision on who the appropriate person is to serve in the role of guardian.
Right. Now, the significant other came into effect, and that was a natural, wasn't it? To have that come into play?
You think it would be, yes. But, you know, when you have blended families, sometimes people try to, you know, move around the back door and take some control.
Really? Okay.
And so this does address that issue, and there were some very serious issues that needed to be addressed.
And I would imagine kind of opening this up like on that level is going to be beneficial. Would you?
I think as a whole the changes are good, yes. Of course, anytime you go messing with the laws, you end up with unintended consequences, and there are some things they need to tweak out. But as a whole, I think it really was a very good change.
Now, what are some of the things that a guardian can do, and what are some of the things they can't do?
Well, under the rules, previous rules, there was a little paragraph that said just by virtue of the fact that you're a guardian, you get to do these things. And that paragraph was sort of pushed aside and not replaced with anything yet. So right now, a guardian or a conservator has actually no authority unless it is in the order. So that's a new a new change for us. And so as attorneys, then it's our job to try to figure out what do we think our guardian is going to need to do during the next year and put that in a plan. So that's a new requirement also. You have to have a plan now of how are you going to care for this person over the next year. And So we put that in the plan, those things that we think the guardian is going to need to do, which is going to include determining where does this person live, what type of social and educational opportunities are offered to them, what types of opportunities will be provided to interact with family members, because many times someone who would be under guardianship might end up isolated from other family members who now thought they couldn't visit anymore.
Yeah.
So there's a whole plan that you have to put in place, so it's very individualized.
And how long does this plan have to, how long do you have in order to put that plan into place?
You have a very short time, so 60 days after you have been appointed as a guardian, you have to submit your plan.
Okay.
So then, what's kind of the term, the length of when you are appointed the guardianship, and is it something that needs to get revisited on a regular basis? Does it have, an end date?
Yes, that was another change also. Yes, there's a report every year. As a guardian, you have to file an annual report, and under the previous rules, the judges could waive that, so maybe you wouldn't file a report but every 3 years. So that's gone now. Every year you have to make a report to the court of what's been happening over the last year and what is your plan for the year going forward. And in the initial report it asks you, how long do you think this guardianship is going to need to be in place? And for the most part, those are for the rest of the person's life, for the most part, unless you're a minor. Then you're going to age out. But if you've gotten one for an adult, the chances are that's going to be in place for the rest of that person's life.
No, but a guardianship and conservatorship, these are these basically good things to have in place, or are these things you want to try to avoid?
Well, they're expensive things to have in place, and so for that reason, oftentimes we try to avoid them. And there are ways to avoid them if you have good, robust powers of attorney in place and you have a good support structure and people you trust to take care of you, then you can avoid the need for a guardianship and conservatorship. But if you don't have those people around you, then the guardianship and conservatorship structure provides court oversight so that it's meant to be protective. So even the terminology has changed. A person who's under a guardianship and conservatorship, the previous word was ward, and now the word is protected person. So some of the language has even changed just to give us that focus of what is the intent of this law, and it's to protect people.
Wow.
So where do you recommend for people to find out this type of information and the changes in law? Is it with a law firm such as yourself? Are there other resources, how to find out these changes that happen?
Well, the Iowa Bar Association offers a limited amount of resources, and I think they had a class for people. But generally, if you have a guardianship and conservatorship, then you'll want to talk to your attorney about what the changes in the law, what might you need to do differently based on the changes in the law.
And People's Law School events, quickly, you want to talk about those?
That is something that the Iowa Bar Association is putting together. There's, it's so hard for people to find out. You can go online and do your Google search, but to make sure that you have accurate information. And so you can go on, send an email to the Iowa Bar Association and find out what topics they're covering and when they're covering them.
IowaBar.org for more information. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
As always.